So there's these two guys, right? And they both really love knives, and after one of them becomes a pretty well-known and successful knife designer, they decide to start a knife company together. They name it after the lush region of California that they call home and start pumping out some truly magical pieces. And after many months of struggling to get my hands on one of those pieces, two of them arrived at my door, and well, here we are. That's right, thanks to a kind viewer and longtime supporter of the channel who goes by the name Void's Vids, I have finally been able to get my hands on a couple of knives from Monterey Bay Knives, also known as MBK, and this is the MBK Old Guard, more specifically the full-size MBK Old Guard full tie with the Inset Lock. Considering that mouthful of a name, I'll refer to it as the Big Guard from here on out. The Big Guard here is one of the MBK models that I have personally been hunting for a good long while. Clean line, sleek profile, raw tie everywhere you look, a simple, clean, and elegant folder that manages to feel modern and new while harkening back to a simpler time, an easier time, and dare I say it, a better time. Designed by a man most of you should know, and one that you probably don't, the minds of Ray Laconico and Sanford Owen birthed this beauty a while back, and it's been on my top 10 must-buy lists ever since. This is a full-size, full titanium liner lock, or Inset Lock knife. I don't know why they called it that, but they did. This is a visual feast for the eyes, and yet as simple and as clean as knives come these days. Gentle ergonomic lines along the bottom of the handles, gently contoured titanium scales that aren't really scales because this is an inset lock, meaning that the knife is built like a frame lock, or it's like two or three solid chunks of titanium, and then the lock bar is like a separate piece. It's bolted. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. I can't really explain it well or put my finger on it, but aesthetically, this thing really does it for me. We've got a nice, hefty backspacer that keeps the knife well balanced in the hand while cleaning up the back spine of the handles. We have a beautifully simple and elegant stonewashed titanium pocket clip that carries insanely well, and we've got just a hint of that built satin finished M390 slicer peeking up while it's closed. It's classy, it's clean, and it is damn beautiful, if you ask me. Opened up, this is a decently long and relatively thin folder overall. No jimping or added texturing for grip, but we'll discuss that when we get to the Ergos. Just stonewashed titanium in a big shiny slab of M390. And that 3.5-inch long, beautifully ground blade is just a stunner. Glistening in the sun, bouncing rays of light around as you cut and slice everything that may come your way. A nice, tall, flat grind that comes about 80% up the height of the blade that lets you know that this thing means business, and it's far more than a pretty face. There's really not much to say about the aesthetics other than the fact that they work for me in every possible way, which is kind of Ray Laconico's calling card when it comes to knife design. He is insanely talented at the art of stopping, as in he knows exactly when the knife design is done. Never adding more here or there, or jimping where you don't need it, or grooves and textures, or none of that nonsense. He simply puts his pencil to work, and when the work is done, he knows when enough is enough, which is violently underappreciated as far as skills go when it comes to industrial design. Now then, moving on to the Ergos. As I mentioned before, this is the Big Daddy Old Guard, alright? But by big, I really mean long. Not overwhelmingly thick or chonky by any means. The titanium scales are nicely contoured and they just kind of dissolve into the nooks and the crannies of the hand. The clip is a non-issue as far as Ergos are concerned, just a subtly contoured milled chunk of titanium. Everything here is really nicely knocked down, really nicely finished, so we don't have any problems with pinch points or hot spots. It's not the grippiest knife in the world, considering we have no jimping to speak of anywhere on this one, and even though we do not get a finger choil on this long, slim piece of titanium and steel, the subtle texturing from the kind of the stonewashed, bead-blasted scales mixed with the excellently sculpted ergonomic lines give you a good, secure grip in use. Overall, it's an exceptionally comfortable knife to hold and to use day to day. Speaking of being exceptional in everyday use, let's talk about that blade. That big, beautiful built satin finished M390 drop point style blade is as slicey as it looks. A nice, tall, flat grind brings that substantially thick blade stock down to a delightfully thin cutting edge. And even though this particular Old Guard needs just the tiniest bit of love to bring it back to its full potential, This thing was made to cut. Paper, cardboard, tape, small children, you name it, anything you may come across in your day-to-day life. As a knife nerd, this thing will handle with a level of grace and elegance that will have you on Knife Guy Cloud 9. It is a sensually slicey blade and one that looks absolutely stunning to boot. And finally, the most puzzling piece of this knife, for me at least, the action. This is, if you weren't aware already, not running on bearings. No. This is in fact on good old PB washers. That's phosphor bronze for the layman. And how they have managed to deliver this kind of mind-bogglingly smooth and drop-shutty action on washers is boggled my mind since the day this piece arrived. As far as deployment methods go, we have thumb studs and thumb studs only, which I'm okay with. Thumb flicks and reverse flicks are sensationally satisfying, insanely snappy. Detent is honest, it's really well dialed for both, and the weight of that blade snapping open gives your arm a good rattle and your brain a nice serotonin kick. But on the close, somehow, some way, by what I can only imagine is the use of the dark arts or some kind of evil sorcery, this thing friggin' drops shut. And I mean drops gracefully, smoothly, like push aside the little lock bar and it drops to the nail, move the nail out of the way, and that blade just kind of gingerly glides closed with little or no outside help. Maybe a shake here or there, but it's kind of crazy. Truly mind-bending action for a knife running on good old-fashioned washers. Top-notch, start to finish. So where does all this leave me with the Monterey Bay Knives large Old Guard Inset Lock? Well, simply put, I'm truly blown away. As I mentioned before, this is the first time I've experienced anything from MBK, and not for lack of trying, but at last check, when these are back in stock at least, you can snag one for around $215. Like, excuse me? Excuse me? That's it? $215? They're basically giving these things away. This is better than any high-end Wii or Best Tech I think I've ever handled. Ever. And it's a damn sight cheaper. So if you're looking for an insanely well-made knife with dynamite cutting performance, top-notch materials, head-turning looks, buttery smooth action, and killer ergos, I mean, MBK might be one of the first places you should stop by and check. Truly, it's a simple, minimal home run in my book, and I can't wait to check out more MBKs in the very near future. So until next time, thank you all so much for watching. Bye-bye now.